Hey there and welcome back to another Sony video. And recently, and by recently I mean in the last couple of months, we saw the release of the film Lyle Lyle Crocodile, which is about a singing crocodile in New York. And yeah, I'll be honest, I never expected this film to be good at all. I knew it was an adaptation of a popular kid's storybook. I knew they were probably following on from the footsteps of Paddington and trying to cash in on that popularity with kids, and I figured, it sounds cute, I guess. But then I saw the trailer and I thought, it looks bad. Like, really, truly terrible. I thought the acting looked bad, the jokes looked bad, and the execution of the singing animal looked bad. It just didn't look like they could pull any of it off. All in all, I was very apprehensive, and I was so certain it was going to be terrible that I didn't bother watching it. Because, no thanks. And so we cut to a couple months after it was released, and I figured, I haven't really heard much about the film. Maybe I should go and see how it did. And yeah, I was actually very surprised, because any way you slice this thing, it was an overwhelming success. For starters, look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores. I was thinking, yeah, it's going to get panned. But it has 72% critical score and a 93% audience score from over 1,000 reviews. So, yeah, whilst critics weren't completely enamored with the film, those are by no means bad scores. And then the audience score, that's top tier. Audiences love this thing. And then on top of that, it seems to have done decently at the box office. It grossed $104 million so far, off a budget of $50 million. So, whilst it's not setting any records, I think it's done reasonably well, and it's still going, so perhaps it'll keep growing. I mean, it probably won't grow a whole lot more, but a bit perhaps. And so, whilst it's not going to be winning awards and setting the world on fire with its popularity, the film still feels like it's been a resounding success no matter what way you slice it. By every metric you can measure success, against the odds, this film has achieved them. Anyway, spoilers ahead from this point onwards. The film tells the story of Lyle, a singing crocodile. The film never bothers to explain how he learnt to sing, but just accept it. One day, as a baby, he's found in the pet store by failed magician Hector Valenti, who sees him as a one-way ticket back to the big time. So he takes him back to his brownstone and continues to train him to sing and dance, even making him a cute little matching costume. On the day of their audition, Lyle gets a terrible case of stage fright and finds himself completely and utterly unable to perform. Which is bad news, as Hector had staked his property on their audition as collateral, and so, newly homeless, Hector has to go on the road to earn them some money, telling Lyle to hide in the house until he returns. And then we skip 18 months into the future, when the Prim family moves into the home, and inevitably, they find Lyle, with all of them bonding with him in their own way. Hector eventually returns, and prepares Lyle for his next big show, but once again their audition flops from Lyle's stage fright. Hector's then threatened by mobsters he owes money to, and eventually he sells out Lyle to the authorities after his neighbour offered to pay off his debts. Lyle's locked in the zoo, Hector feels guilty, and he busts him out alongside Josh Prim, and then Lyle and Josh team up to show what Lyle can do on stage and prevent him getting rearrested. He then becomes a sensation, and somehow the courts allow him to live in the brownstone with the family. Just cause. A happy ending all round, except for the neighbour Mr. Grumps. Yes, that is his name. And just writing that synopsis out, it doesn't really seem like it's a film that's going to be all that good, does it? Like, it's a pretty generic premise. Paddington light in many ways. And there's really not that much to draw you in. But somehow, in a way that I have not been able to pin down, it just works. Like, you can look at some kids' films and say, oh yeah, I get it. I get why this thing did well. I get why it works or why it's good. But I look at the plot of this and I think, and then I watch it, and although my brain can recognize that the narrative is really nothing special, for some reason, I just can't shake this feeling. This desire to share this film. It's so weirdly good. Oh God, I hope films like this are coming back. Please. The glory days of the early 2000s where films like this were released multiple times a year. Peak nostalgia. And honestly, I think that might be one of the big reasons the film's so good. Because it's not trying to be anything else. It's there to make you have fun. Yeah, the script can be corny and silly, but it's funny too, and wholesome as all hell. I said earlier that it felt like Paddington light, and honestly, it is in a way, but not in a bad way. It feels like Paddington in America. Paddington with a New York City twist. It's simply there trying to craft a fun and enjoyable experience. Not to preach at you, not to make a grand social statement, not to make you cry. It's just there to tug at your heartstrings and make you happy. To be fun and enjoyable, to make you laugh and smile. Just good, wholesome fun. And I think that's so very refreshing. And that, along with the nostalgia from the book, decent enough performances, and a good soundtrack, probably ended up crafting a fun throwback sort of film, infusing this modern style with the magic of those 90s and 2000s family flicks. In terms of acting, it's not really anything special. It fits in well with the movie, and nobody's actively bad. Hell, even the child actor that plays Josh was pretty good. And child actors are notoriously hit or miss. And he had some scenes where he had to show a pretty wide range of emotions, and whilst he's not hitting the highs of some recent teen/child stars, at the same time he was still decent, and he didn't detract from the film with his performance. The adults, they were mostly forgettable except for Hector. I was surprised to see this actor in this, by the way, but I figured they're probably paying him quite well, and honestly, this sort of shit is probably quite fun to do. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And I'm pretty sure that he's been quite open about not considering himself an actor, but more an entertainer. So doing films like this does fit with that vibe. Beyond that, there's no really eye-catching performances, at least from live action point of view. Although, that being said, the animation for Lyle was truly cute. Loved it. And I also found the concept of them doing scenes with a dude in a bodysuit pretending to be the crocodile, for when he's added in via CGI in post-production, I found that image quite funny. Especially when he's wrestling with the dad in the attic, a middle-aged man in high school wrestling gear, and a burly stuntman in a gimp suit. Whew, you can't say performers don't earn their money, I tell you what. Beyond that, the film thankfully did not linger too long. There are few things worse than a film of this type overstaying its welcome. They eventually become very tedious. But here, I think it ends right at the point that it was about to linger too long, and thus you're completely satisfied. It's not too long, not too short. Just right. And then, you finish that off with a good soundtrack. A lot of cool original songs sung by Shawn Mendes, who, I'm not a massive fan, but he's a very good singer. And then there's some classics from Elton John and Stevie Wonder peppered in. A well-done soundtrack that really complements the film nicely. Just adds to the experience. Hell yeah. Great film. Great experience. I want a sequel. No shame in saying that, is there? Hell yeah, let's make a franchise out of this thing. And so yeah, that's really all I have to say. And so I'll end things here and say these are just my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. If you've seen the film, what did you think of it? You like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.